It's Backlash month here on WrestleRant. As for the entire month of April, I'll be reviewing every installment of the pay-per-view from Backlash 1999 to Backlash 2009. And my reviews of 1999 and 2000 are already up here on the channel from this past weekend, so if you missed them, make sure to go back and check them out. So today is talking all about Backlash 2001, kind of continuing the theme of great pay-per-views. And like I talked about my Backlash 1999 review, that the WrestleManias from this period in time, with the exception of WrestleMania 17, I mean, one of the best WrestleManias, if not the greatest WrestleMania of all time. But those WrestleManias 13, 14, 15, 16 weren't great in my opinion. And the Backlash events did a lot to kind of serve as, that was good, but this is 10 times better. Really enjoyed the 1999 installment. 2000 installment I thought was spectacular. And this kind of continued that theme as I said before. Kicking off the show, 6-man tag team action with the X Factor, one of the most random stables in WWE history. Albert, Justin Credible, and X-Pac taking on the Dudley Boys, Spike, Devon, and Bubba Ray. A really good matchup, not much of a story behind it other than just a standard 6-man tag team matchup. Not your greatest match in the world, but for what it was, that it was solid, it was good. The X Factor cheating to come out victorious after hitting a super kick on Bubba Ray to pick up the win. So a nice way of kicking off the show, not an over-the-top, eccentric, electric 6-man tag team match, but for what it was, solid, nice tag team wrestling that the WWE was known for around this period in time, coming off that amazing triangle tag team title ladder match at WrestleMania 17, which was kind of the blow-off of those, that long, year-long feud between those three teams, and the tag team division was still in a very good, position coming out of that pay-per-view, but that's not what this show was kind of about. It was kind of about the Dudley Boys were coming off of that loss and moving into a feud with the X Factor. But for what it was, a good tag team match to kick off the show. Up next for the Hardcore Championship, Rhino defending against Raven in a hardcore match, obviously. Crazy matchup. I've always really enjoyed Rhino and the athleticism he brings to the table. Raven has always been really good as this, pardon the pun from earlier, kind of having that X Factor, that it factor, something different, something fresh, something invigorating. Kind of a watered-down persona than what he was in ECW, but as we saw in that great triple threat title match from WrestleMania 17 the month prior, the guy can be really, really good in the hardcore match situations, and that was kind of the case here. Of the hardcore matches up to this point from 1999 and from 2000, I think in 1999, like I talked about on Saturday, was between Hardcore Holly, and Al Snow. At the 2000 installment, it was the 6-man, 6-pack challenge involving Crash Holly, Hardcore Holly, the Hardy Boys, and a few others. So back to the one-on-one format here, and I thought this was the best hardcore title match to date. I thought it was great. Rhino was stellar. I think he almost did a gore in like a grocery cart or something like that, and Raven capitalized. Chair shots galore. People were going crazy for it. Very much invested in the action. A great, very fun matchup. Really enjoyed it. Rhino coming out victorious, still the hardcore champion. So very entertaining match from start to finish. Speaking of such, up next, William Regal versus Chris Jericho in a Duchess of Queensberry rules match. Without the Intercontinental Championship on the line, I thought they had a really nice match in the opener of WrestleMania 17. But of course, it was immediately following WrestleMania that Triple H would beat Jericho for the IC Championship. So Jericho was titleless for this matchup. So it would allow William Regal the possibilities of him winning as the WWF Commissioner were significantly higher. But what is exactly a Duchess of Queensberry rules match? And that was what a lot of people were wondering going into this matchup, which is what the story was all about. Jericho didn't know, the commentators didn't know, we didn't know. And the whole point of that was that William Regal was making the rules. He was making the rules as they went along. With someone dressed up as the Duchess of Queensberry at ringside, would grab the mic, and every time Jericho would seemingly win the match, they would change the rules on them. When Jericho went for the pinfall cover, they said it was only submissions. When William Regal went for the, when he hit Jericho with some kind of steel chair or something, they said it was no disqualification. And I believe there was one other stipulation they threw in there that I completely forgot about. No disqualification, no submission. Maybe it was no count out or something like that too, but something else really, really weird that you couldn't really, it was only submissions and no disqualifications and stuff like that, just kind of some wacky stipulation. The whole point of that was that William Regal was making the rules as they went along, because that's what kind of made it interesting, exciting. Kind of a throwaway matchup. I thought it was pretty well wrestled for the most part, and the whole point of it was that the odds were stacked against Chris Jericho here. So they succeeded in that respect, and the crowd almost got their moment with Jericho knocking out the bodyguard for the Queen at the Duchess, at ringside, before almost locking in the walls of Jericho on the Duchess of Queensberry, before William Regal capitalized, knocked out Jericho, and I think he just pinned him for the 1, 2, 3. I can't remember exactly. I know they made up one other kind of rule that allowed William Regal to win, but he did come out victorious in this matchup, getting his win back over Chris Jericho, exacting his revenge. And I mean, it was fun for what it was, and a Matt Classic. Not, from a wrestling standpoint, it wasn't as good as their matchup from WrestleMania, but it was entertaining in the respect that it was something that we had never seen before and haven't seen since, and it was just kind of interesting to see how they made the rules up as they went along. So that's the part of it that I kind of enjoyed. So interesting to say the least. Up next for an ultimate submission match. I almost said it was for the Intercontinental Championship, but that was the year prior. Instead of Chris Benoit versus Jericho from the year prior, this was Chris Benoit versus Kurt Angle in a rematch from WrestleMania, like I said, this time around, in an ultimate submission match, which is perfect considering the two guys that are involved. As of this recording, it was only a couple days ago on Impact Wrestling that we had Bobby Roode versus Eric Young in a submission match. And it wasn't a bad match. I thought it was pretty solid for the most part. But it just didn't make any sense to me because neither Eric Young or Bobby Roode are known for their submissions. Two great wrestlers, but they're not two great submission specialists. Benoit and Angle, on the other hand, the ankle lock and the crossface are their signature finishing maneuvers. But as the commentary team noted, they weren't going for those maneuvers the entire matchup. There was a lot more in the repertoire of both guys that made this matchup worthwhile. And it wasn't a 10-minute ultimate submission match, or a 15-minute, or a 20-minute even. It was 30 minutes. Could they have gone 60? Sure, but I feel like that should be saved for special occasions on a mid-card matchup, which was what this was. I mean, it was a great match, but it wasn't like main event material. I mean, it could have been, but you know what I mean. It was in the middle of the show. Did not need to go 60 minutes, so I thought 30 minutes was perfect. They made the 30 minutes just fly by with a lot of great submissions. Angle dominated most of the matchup before Benoit, at the very last second, got it in the submission over Kurt Angle. Or at the very, in the final few minutes, I believe they were tied. And I think it was 3-3. Angle dominated 3-1 for the most of the matchup before Benoit came back with two more submission victories. And before he had Benoit in the ankle lock, Benoit was about to tap out. He tapped out after the bell. Angle argued that should have gotten them victory, but they went into overtime. About a minute and a half into overtime before Benoit picked up the win to score the victory over Kurt Angle. So this was a great matchup, kind of shades of WrestleMania 12, going into overtime between Bret Hart and Michaels for the WWE title, Shawn Michaels that is, and a great matchup. Really enjoyed this, and like I said before, both guys are kind of known for their respective submission maneuvers, but it was much more. It was about much more than just that. They used a lot of variation of different submission maneuvers that kind of made it exciting, and the story was interesting too, with Benoit battling back and trying to even the odds and get his numbers back in his favor with coming back from 3-1. So I thought that was great. Excellent match all around. Up next, Shane McMahon versus Big Show in a last man standing match. And this was coming off Shane McMahon's battle, his absolute war against his father Vince at WrestleMania 17, trying to exact revenge on his father. Vince was still out for revenge against Shane, so he sent out the Big Show to face Shane at this pay-per-view. And not any ordinary matchup, but rather a last man standing matchup. And Shane, to his credit, almost and a very smart tactic. I don't remember exactly what he used. I believe it was chloroform. I don't know if it was ever acknowledged on commentary. I can't recall. But he piggybacked the Big Show, jumped on him, put him to sleep, and almost got the 10 count before Vince interfered and started beating the crap out of Shane. But Shane would not give up. Test would come down to kind of rival the Big Show, kind of even the odds, and help Shane out a little bit before Big Show just dominated Shane McMahon. And they would take Big Show over to the side, and what was, one for the highlight reel, of course, in shades of SummerSlam, I want to say 2000 or 2001, 99. I think it's 2000. But, and this is 2001. I don't know if this happened before or after that. But they take Big Show over to the side of the Titantron, the side of the set of the pay-per-view. And Shane climbs up easily at least 50 feet up to the top of the to the top of the set, the Titantron, jumps all the way off, delivers an elbow to Big Show. Just an amazing visual, and they showed all these different side views and stuff like that, and they could, because it wasn't like, he missed and he hit a mat instead. He went right through the wooden floor or whatever it was. Maybe he broke the wooden thing and he fell on a mat. Whatever it was, it looked absolutely amazing. Very, very devastating. That, of course, helped Shane pick up the victory here over the Big Show, and there's no better way for him to defeat the Giant than with such a special maneuver. And like I said, one for the highlight reel. Shane has always been an amazing athlete. I think that goes without saying. And only something that he could pull off. And I mean, that only he could pull off. And like I said, time and time again in past reviews, from the Attitude Era, Shane McMahon was a one-of-a-kind competitor. He was a guy that could do anything that was asked of him, whether it was taking beatings or pulling out beatings and beating other people up with, moves like this and pulling off something special that will not be soon forgotten. And JR was saying on commentary, this is up there with with Mick Foley, with Mankind being tossed off the Hell in a Cell in 1998. And I would absolutely argue that was the case, or is the case. I mean, even all these years later, it obviously does not get as much recognition as the Hell in a Cell matchup does, because that was Hell in a Cell. This was just, last man standing match. You'll often, recall the spot. And, Shane did something similar against Steve Blackman. Like I said, I know it was at a SummerSlam or maybe a King of the Ring or something. I don't remember exactly what year it was. And that's also up there with, amazing Shane McMahon moments, much like this one. It is an underrated moment, though. People, if you've seen it, a clip of it, you'll know where it came from. But a lot of people don't, really recognize it as being one of those all-time amazing moments. And that was absolutely spectacular. So great stuff from Shane McMahon to the Big Show. Much more entertaining than I gave it any right to be going into it. I set my expectations pretty low, but they superseded them and delivered. A great matchup, very entertaining, with a absolutely stellar, sick ending from Shane McMahon jumping off the top of the set. So up next, a triple threat match for the European Championship. Matt Hardy defending against Christian and Eddie Guerrero. On paper, I mean, a really good matchup. It was a good matchup. Just the only issue with it was that it didn't really make... It's not that it didn't make any sense. They didn't really provide any background for it. Maybe the commentators did and I missed it. There just wasn't any pre-match video package. And I wouldn't expect there to be for a European title match. But it was a good match. That's pretty much all it was. It was a nice filler. I will say that much. It was a nice filler between the last man standing match and the main event for for everything, winner takes all match, which I'll get to in a minute. But good matchup. Matt Hardy came out victorious, still the European champion, so fine for what it was. Good match. Just not much storyline. Not much storyline purpose behind it. So we get to the main event, the two-man power trip, the WWE Champion Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Intercontinental Champion Triple H, taking on the WWF Tag Team Champions, the Brothers of Destruction, The Undertaker and Kane, respectively. And like I said before, in a winner-takes-all matchup, whatever team won this matchup, they would win all the gold. If it was Triple H or Stone Cold pinning one of the Brothers of Destruction, they would win the tag team titles. If Taker pinned Triple H, you'd win the IC title. If Kane pinned Stone Cold, you would win the WWE title. So a lot at stake here, and of course this was coming off Stone Cold's heel turn in WrestleMania 17, where he won the WWE title, and Triple H, the next night on Raw, helped, they formed the two-man power trip the very next night on Raw to send The Rock packing to form the two-man power trip, and Triple H would win the Intercontinental Championship a short time later. So a really good matchup, went about 30 minutes, solid for the most part. I mean, most of the matchup, I would say, 2/3 or maybe even 3/4 of it were, just standard tag team action, nothing really out of the ordinary. A good match, just nothing, all-time memorable, greatest match of all time caliber. But it would, become very, very good down the stretch with some involvement from Vince at ringside. So it was a really good match from that respect. And Stephanie was also there at ringside too. And it was a really good match down the stretch. Early on, it was, solid, standard tag team match action. Pretty formulaic for the most part, but when it came down the stretch with the multiple finishers and them trying to, put the other away, became really, really good, very exciting, very suspenseful stuff. And in the end, Stone Cold would pin, I think, Kane. I can't remember exactly who he pinned up, but I know that Stone Cold picked up the victory for his team to win the WWE Tag Team titles, thus becoming the most powerful entities in the entire WWE, with Stone Cold as the WWF champion, Triple H as the IC champion, and both of them together collectively as the tag team champions. So a really good way to go off the show, kind of, presenting the narrative, what is going to happen next. And it's a shame, too, because, of course, Triple H would get injured a short time later in that match with Jericho and Benoit at, I don't know what paper, I think it was on Raw, of course, in that episode of Raw. Might have been for the tag team titles. one of the greatest Raw main events of all time, which unfortunately will never be remembered due to Benoit's involvement in it. But the two-man power trip had so much potential, and I don't know if the long-term plan at this point was to do a match at WrestleMania between Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin. I know when Triple H got hurt, that was the plan, but Hulk Hogan coming in and everything else, all the other factors kind of nixed that match from happening at WrestleMania, which, like I said in my WrestleMania 18 review, I think would have been a much better matchup, a much better alternative to the matchup we ended up getting at that pay-per-view between Triple H and Jericho. But still, and this was all before the invasion, too. I know Shane was the owner of WCW, and that was what kind of fueled the fire between him and his father, Vince. But this was before the whole, the cluster muck of the invasion that summer, which was, terribly botched, which is another rant for another day, which I'll hopefully review the invasion pay-per-view at some point. But this was before that whole chaos ensued, and things were still running pretty smoothly for the most part. So there's a lot of questions, more so than answers, going into the next night's Raw as to what was happening, what was going to happen next with the two-man power trip. And like I said, it's not even dropping the ball in the storyline. Triple H got hurt, stuff like that happens. There's really nothing you can do. It's just kind of more of a what-if scenario as to whether, as to what would have happened had the two-man power trip carried on into the invasion angle only a few months later. So that wraps up my review of Backlash 2001. Like I said earlier, a really, really good pay-per-view on the whole, kind of up there with the 1999 and 2000 installments and being very, very enjoyable. Great action from start to finish, from the beginning of the show to the conclusion of the show. I thought it was a very entertaining show with a lot of awesome action involving, like I said before, the hardcore matchup was really, really entertaining. Regal and Jericho is fun in its own way. Benoit and Jericho, an excellent wrestling match. Easily, I mean, that goes without saying, the best wrestling match on this show that you should go out of your way to see. Shane McMahon and Big Show, very, very entertaining, well worth watching, if only for the ending. Watch the entire matchup, but if only for that ending, just fantastic stuff. And then the main event was also very, very noteworthy. First time ever, only time ever, I believe, with every championship being on the line, all the major titles in WWE. So a very newsworthy and solid, enjoyable main event. So I enjoyed it for that reason alone. So a really, really, really good pay-per-view on the whole. Really liked it. Like I said before, definitely would suggest that you go back and watch it on the WWE Network for only $9.99. Whether the 2002 installment will be as good as the 99, 2000, and 01 installments remains to be seen. But so far, so good. These past three Backlash pay-per-views have been excellent. Even more so than WrestleMania. Definitely in the case of 99 and 2000. Not so much with this pay-per-view. I mean, you can't really top WrestleMania 17, arguably the greatest WrestleMania of all time. But it was still a great pay-per-view from start to finish, like I said before, that you should watch in the WWE Network. But I'll be back on Saturday with my review of Backlash 2002, along with 03 on Sunday and 04 next Tuesday. So make sure to stay tuned here on the channel for that. If you want to show your support, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Find me on Twitter at WrestleRant, Facebook at Graham Jason Matthews, and like I said before, support is greatly appreciated. Have a great week, guys, and I'll catch you guys on Saturday with my review of Backlash 2002.